Hello everyone. Today I will be featuring my first impressions of the Giulio Cesare, or however you pronounce it, Giulio something. It's a tier 5 Italian premium battleship. Now the matchmaking is quite brutal. Me and this poor tier 22 are the only tier 5s on our team. Everyone else is tier 6 or tier 7. So obviously we're in for a bit of a brutal game here. Now, first of all, I love the way this new Italian battleship looks. I think it looks absolutely amazing, and I'll show you guys the premium camo and more of the way it looks in game later on. Now, what is the special thing? What is the special thing about this? Well, the special thing about this is the dispersion. This ship has a pretty incredible dispersion of 138 meters. For those that aren't aware, that is a very scary dispersion. Now, they have tried to offset this really good dispersion by taking the sigma down to 1.5, but I do not feel it's quite enough to really offset how strong this ship is. This ship, the guns on this ship are really monstrous. Now I am recognized on the server, and this division of Bayern and Nagato lets me know that we're gonna kill you, noob. That's of course always interesting, considering I'm a trying to test tier 5 battleship, and now I got a tier 6 and tier 7 battleship actively hunting me. So that's gonna lead to some interesting gameplay, no doubt. My team also decides that they're all gonna go towards C, besides our DD that's up there in the north. So once again, very challenging game coming in. First things first, you notice that I got undetected quite easily, and the reason for this is that the concealment, if you run concealment expert and camouflage, is actually 11.4. 11.4 for tier 5 battleship is excellent. It's competitive with tier 8 battleship concealment, which is considered some of the best concealment in the game. So this is very stealthy for a battleship. Another thing worth mentioning is of course the speed. It does 27 knots without the flag. With the flag on, it does speed flag on, it does 28.4 knots. So a very fast battleship as well. So fast and stealthy. Now, what are the downsides? Well, the downsides really aren't that many, and that's something I got a bit of an issue with. I mean, the AA is pretty garbage, but then again, all tier 5s battleships have pretty garbage anti-air. And this isn't, compared to them, the AA actually isn't that bad, so you're kinda in the same state as them. So you don't really have too many of the weaknesses. I mean, slightly lower health pool maybe, 45.5k, but you do have your 5 heals, and it's quite well armored in general. Of course, it does have turtleback, but if you get broadside like I did there, especially if you're fighting against higher tier battleships, well, then you're gonna get citadeled. As you can see, I can barely heal any of the incoming damage, and that's because I ate a fat meaty citadel from the Nagato. Well, I don't know how much angling would have helped against him anyway, but I had to turn in because I knew this guy was torping, and I had to basically dodge them. But the speed of this ship does allow you to dodge unexpectedly easily some torpedoes that are sent your way, which is of course a bonus. And considering some of you know, I've been playing the American battleships, and after having gone through the Wyoming, New York, New Mexico and Colorado, getting to play a battleship that has 28 knots of speed, holy crap, it feels so exhilarating to actually be able to position yourself, to be able to kite, to be able to disengage, to be able to actually be active on the map and move around. Now, the Omaha, he is trying to angle against me. Omaha is another one, kind of like the New York. That poor ship has suffered so much power creep, and his life is just getting harder because angling against me doesn't work, and you can see that insane dispersion. It's pretty much cruiser dispersion that we're talking about here. That's pretty much what you have on this thing. Now, the reload is still 30 seconds. But you have 10 guns, 2 3-turret guns and 2 2-turret guns. So we got 10 shells. They are only 320mm guns, but with cruiser dispersion backing them up, it doesn't matter if it's only 10 guns or 1.5 sigma, because the accuracy really is terrifying at times. I've probably gotten more like devastating as citadel strike. Well, what should have been devastating strikes, but these really strange long-range citadel volleys with this ship. So that's obviously a pretty damn huge strength. Once again, torpedoes coming my way. I'm not even worried, because you see how fast this is. a US battleship would probably have caught one, maybe even two, because it's so slow. This one is so damn fast that you have no issues dodging them. The turret traverse is 36 seconds, which is, once again, pretty damn good. That's without expert marksman. You can add expert marksman to the mix to improve it, but 36 seconds was good enough that I didn't bother, and I instead just went for adrenaline rush, which is of course helping me significantly here now when I've lost about a third of my health. Nagata is starting to angle because of my incoming shells, and here you will see something that I have adapted to my testing build simply because of situations like this. I switch ammo type, and you saw it only takes me 13 seconds to switch ammo, and that is of course I'm running Expert Loader. Expert Loader is something I started running on Royal Navy battleships because they had such strong HE and AP that you found yourself switching quite often. That's kind of the same case on the Giulio? How did I pronounce it? I can't remember. It's kind of the same case on this Italian battleship, and that's because you have a 35% fire chance. That is the same fire chance that the Iron Duke has, which is of course stronger than, for example, what the New York has at 30%. And now, the Alpha isn't the ridiculous Royal Navy Alpha. The HE Alpha isn't the ridiculous Alpha you have on the Royal Navy, but it doesn't really matter in that sense that you have less Alpha. Well, you have 4.8k Alpha, which is of course a lot less than Royal Navy's like 6.5k, but your volleys are still so damn strong because of your improved dispersion. So what you lose in damage because of not having the same as powerful Alpha, you gain by having this greatly improved dispersion. That Nagato I just killed was this division that told me they were gonna kill me. We're gonna kill you, noob, at the start of that game. This Bayern is also in the same division with that dude. And as you can see, like this, what, 15.5 km away, 2 fires on a battleship that's a tier higher than me, and it turns out he doesn't even have damage con. So I'm just gonna keep shooting HE at him, and there's not really much you can do. I assume he blew damage con earlier to a torp or something. I don't know what hit him, but I didn't even respond to them when they started by smack talking me in the beginning. But this is the first time I write anything, and I just give him a nice little bye, Albert, as I literally killed him in 2 HE volleys here, and he burns to death. So that, in my opinion, is a bit too strong. So when they tone down, not only do I feel like they should tone down the fire chance a bit, but they should also tone down the dispersion a bit, because just toning down the fire chance about 5%, as I think they should, from 35 to 30, isn't going to be enough if the dispersion remains as insane as it is. Because if you can land 5 to 6 shots per volley, you're going to be starting shit tons of fires regardless, and we don't really need more of that gameplay in World of Warships. Honestly, I think the Royal Navy line is one of the bigger blunders that wargaming has done so far, because it really has fucked with the meta. Like, have you guys played low tier lately? I ended up against tier 4, tier 5 matchmaking. Everyone is shooting HE nowadays, and there's Orion spamming HE left, right, and center, and it's horrible gameplay. It's straight up unfun gameplay, and I really feel like wargaming screwed the pooch with the way they implemented that line. Even though they got plenty of feedback that it's not a good idea, they still did it. Maybe listen to your feedback for a change. Atlanta is about to give me a really flat broadside, and this dispersion, I mean, we only 1.5 sigma, but 1.5 sigma doesn't really matter considering the base dispersion is so damn tight. And that Atlanta that was hoping to chase down the Fiji, well, now he's probably gonna get killed by the Fiji, quite easily in fact. And of course the speed, once again, coming into action, it's just as easy to disengage as it is to engage. Now, how does it play? Well, it's really fun. Honestly, it's really fun. For those that know the kind of playstyle I like, I really like the Scharnhorst. It's got pretty fast reloading guns, fast turrets, it moves quickly, it's stealthy. Very much the same type of gameplay. Like the Giulio is incredibly fun to play because it has all these strengths. But I do have to be realistic here, because I've not really had issues being a hugely threatening and even carrying factor against tier 7 matchmaking, and you shouldn't be able to do that in a tier 5. That's just too much strength, and I can only imagine like poor New York, poor Omaha, and these guys who are some of the victims to this kind of power creep. Once again, expert loader kicking in since this Bayern is angling against me, and once again I switch to HE. Once you don't want to end up using HE that much in this ship, because the AP is still better because of the significantly better alpha. AP Citadels do 9.7k, HE alpha is 4.8, so you still want to be using AP mostly. But whenever someone angles, the HE is very, very strong. And because of the dispersion as well, you are pretty much going to start fires all the time because you land so many shells on them. He's giving me a lot of broadside here, but he did use his damage con, so I see no reason not to stay with HE. And as you can see, 9 shells. I have 10 guns and I landed 9 shells on him. That's kind of my point, that the HE alpha being lower isn't that big of a downside when you got such good dispersion. I'm gonna see if I can. He's got 1 fire. I'm gonna aim for the front of his ship to see if maybe I can get a second fire. I might not get as much damage, but I'm hoping to start that second fire. No such luck, and I switch to AP here because, well, as I said, the AP still is a better raw source of damage. But the HE is very, very strong. Mostly the combination of really huge fire chance and really good dispersion. Angling against him doesn't really work. I can show you guys, well, it does mitigate the damage significantly, but there are still parts of my ship that he can overmatch quite easily. I can show you guys in the armor viewer later on why he did so much damage. Switching to AP though, and I land 8 out of 10 shots, 16k volley on him, and this Bayern is very, very low at this point. My secondary started fire on him as well, and I turn in and angle these incoming shells. The ship handles really well as well. It feels like a low-tier battleship generally does, that it turns, it has a very tight turning circle and a pretty damn good rudder shift as well, so just a really well-handling ship. And he breaks one of my front guns, but the other ones does significant damage, and I think he's going to burn to death from my fire before I can actually finish him, which he does. And the game does end. Now, looking at the detailed report, I made a bunch of credits. That's because I'm running credit flags just for the shits and giggles. 133k damage, 4 kills. Now, remember what I said at the start of the game? I was one of 2 tier 5s on my team, and I did 133k damage. In fact, if we look at the team score, we can see that the T22, that was the other tier 5, got 2k base XP. Looking at his kills is probably because he got a bunch of solo caps, but obviously he also did a lot of work. And I got 1.9k base XP. And then you look at the competition and our teammates. Tier 6, Tier 7, Tier 7, Tier 6, Tier 7, Tier 7, Tier 7. Like, heavily outmatched. And I had no real issues. I even had an enemy division who was actively trying to kill me. High tier enemy battleship division that was actively trying to kill me. And I killed both of them instead. That really does put things into perspective a bit on this. Looking at the detailed report, we have 1.3 million potential damage. Not the highest really, but considering this is tier 5, I tanked my own health pool, a bit more than my health pool without too many issues. And damage wise, well, AP was still the bread and butter, but HE 38 hits, and those 38 hits started 8 fires. So very, very strong. Actually, I think they started 7 fires. I got a secondary fire as well. So yeah, the ship is very strong. In fact, looking at the ships I actually shot at, you can see most of them were tier 7s, and then we have like 2 Bayerns and an Omaha. So this was a match where I was really outmatched and out-tiered, and I had really no issues just wrecking. And that's kind of sums up the Giulio. It's got too much strength going for it right now, and I do feel it needs to be toned down a bit. That's not to say it isn't absurdly fun to play. I played this a lot today. I probably played like 6, 7, maybe even 8 games in it. I played this ship a lot today because it's so much fun. It's like absurdly fun to play. These kind of battleships especially appeal to me. So like if you're a fan of the Scharnhorst and this ship keeps developing in the same way as we're seeing now, then this is probably going to be a pretty damn solid recommendation for you, especially if you like tier 5 gameplay. Anyway, let's move on to armor viewer, camo viewer, recommended build, the usual stuff that I tend to do in port. Right, starting off, of course, we have the armor or the camo itself, and in general I really like the way this ship looks. I love the way the camo looks, and in general I just love the looks of this ship. I think it's a really good looking battleship. For those that care about these things, well, I kinda do. I do think it adds to the charm of this ship. Armor layout wise, the bow is 19, most of the deck is 19 as well. There's a section here that's 43, which is pretty much immune to most HE, but the rest of it will be eating the full brunt of any HE damage, and of course AP overmatches. It does have a nice section here on the front, which is better armored, and this is of course what you want to be angling against the enemy, as you saw me do against the Bayern. However, it does not prevent you from hitting the penetrations that I did. I think most of the big pens I hit were around here and here, whereas with the way you angle, you can bounce a surprising amount of shells with this armor you got on the sides here. Now, the citadel is actually, of course, not only protected by a turtleback, but it's actually very, very small. It's a very slim citadel. So I think you can get away with going nose in and not necessarily eating citadels. I mean, you can get unlucky enough to eat one, but you do need some bad RNG. However, at long distances, you did see the Nagato Citadel me, and I have eaten Citadels, so at long distances, especially when up-tiered, which you tend to do a lot, they can quite easily plunge straight through your Turtleback and Citadel you if you do give them broadside. So that's of course something to keep in mind. Now, the ship, well, the modules itself, not much to talk about here. You can't change anything. I recommend Premium Heal and Premium Repair. Upgrade-wise, main armaments mod 1 and AA range. You can't actually slot the better dispersion module, so there's really only the option of faster turret traverse and secondary batteries, and considering the secondaries are pretty much not really much to talk about, the only option left is really the AA range, and of course additional tankiness, because well, you don't really lose engine or steering in this ship. So captain perks wise, I have gone for priority target. I rarely lost turrets in it, and I have really started to appreciate priority target a lot in battleship gameplay. Adrenaline rush, because you can get away with not using expert marksman because your turret traverse is 36 seconds. That's not to say that the turret traverse couldn't help it, but I think adrenaline rush is a much more valuable 2-point perk. Superintendent for that additional heal, followed by concealment expert to get that really nice concealment of 11.4, and then we get of course fire prevention. With all the Royal Navy's HE spam that's going around, this is pretty much a must-have on all battleships these days. I did boost myself another captain perk to get expert loader, which I have found pretty good on the ship because, well, the HE is very competitive, so you end up switching to the HE quite often when you need to. It's not as overwhelmingly powerful as the Royal Navy HE, where you literally want to use it instead of the AP, but it is very strong, and that's why it's a very strong option to switch to, and of course very useful against high tiers that angle against you, as you saw in the game I played earlier. Flag wise, very similar to most of what you run. Oh, I could show the camo bonuses. It only gives you 30% XP, so that is a bit questionable. Not really much of XP, but I think that's the default you get for tier 5 premiums. Signal wise, pretty straightforward. You run India Delta. Well, I don't bother with the fire prevention because I think you have the stealth, and in general you can disengage without needing it. I run the secondary flag simply because I have so many of them. I run the speed flag because I really enjoy the speed, and with the speed flag you can break 28 knots, which is quite considerable on a battleship. I also run a bunch of XP and such flags. Ideally, of course, you'd want to run stuff like November Foxtrot and of course India Yankee. Anyway, that was my first impressions of the Giulio Cesare, or however you pronounce it. You can take it out on me in the comments about how I'm butchering your precious name. But overall, this ship is really, really good. I think it's a bit too good in its current state. Personally, in my opinion, they could nerf the HE a bit. I don't really see the need for the 35% fire chance. I think 30% fire chance would equalize it quite a lot. Like, what's New York's fire chance? New York has 30%. Yeah, I think 30% is pretty solid. It means that if people angle, you still have a really good chance of starting fires, and HE is still very strong, but it doesn't promote that non-stop HE spam that we're seeing right now with the ridiculous Royal Navy HE. The alpha already isn't that high, so AP is still the better choice, so that's really the only change when it comes to HE. And overall dispersion, I think they could widen it a bit. I think 138 meter dispersion is a bit too tight for a battleship. It does feel like you're a bit too punishing to the poor cruisers, especially since they really struggle to do much against angling doesn't necessarily help too much at these tiers. So it's a bit too punishing right now. They could widen it a bit and see how it goes. And I think this ship would be in a pretty damn good spot because it's really strong. I mean, its maneuverability, concealment are all really fun factors. The lack of calibers means that you don't really take on other battleships that well. That is, if they turn down the HE, of course. But other than that, it's a strong ship, but I do feel it's a bit too strong at the moment. We'll see what Wargaming decide to do with it. Hopefully they don't release it in its current state, because I don't feel like the poor New York and poor Omaha can deal with this much power creep anymore. I mean, if they are going to release it as it is, they really need to go take a look back at some of the lines they released earlier and give them some well-deserved buffs to keep up with all the other strengths that we're seeing in all these different lines. Anyway, that was all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it.